The sun was red and angry in the alien sky. Its heat burned everything in the wasteland below: old machines, broken walls, and metal skeletons lay scattered across the sand. Two alien women walked slowly between the wreckage. Their clothes were torn, their feet blistered, and their faces tired. They had escaped from their captors just 2 days ago, but food was low, water was gone, and hope was fading fast. The older sister, Yelna, had sharp eyes and long silver hair that stuck to her sweaty skin. She held her sister's hand tightly. The younger one, Mari, was limping badly. A deep cut ran down her ankle, and her face was pale. "Just a little more," Yelna whispered. "There's a hill. We can hide behind it." Mari nodded weakly, but her body was shaking. They didn't know that the ground ahead wasn't safe. It was an old hunting field left by slavers long ago. Metal traps hidden under sand, forgotten by most, deadly still, with a small step. Mari's foot landed on something cold and sharp. Before she could speak, the ground clicked. Snap. A rusted trap exploded upward. Thick metal wires wrapped around Mari's legs. She screamed, falling hard, her arms flailing in the dust. Blood splashed across the dry ground. "Mari!" Yelna shouted, rushing to her. She knelt beside the trap, pulling at the wires with shaking hands, but the trap had locked tight. It was old but strong. Mari's face twisted in pain, her voice shaking. "I can't feel my toes," she whispered. Yelna wiped the sweat from her sister's forehead. It's okay, I'll get you out." But as she looked closely, her heart sank. The trap had pierced deep, even if she freed her. The leg might not survive. Far in the distance, something beeped. Yelna froze. That sound, it was a signal. The trap had activated a beacon. Slavers used these to track down escapees. "We don't have time," she whispered, more to herself than to Mari. She pulled harder at the metal, cutting her own hands in the process, but it wouldn't budge. Mari looked up at the sky. Her eyes glassy. "Yelna," she whispered, "if they come, run, please. Don't let them take you again." Yelna shook her head. "No, I'm not leaving you." Mari smiled softly. "Then, let's say goodbye now." Tears rolled down Yelna's face. She leaned forward and held her sister tight. The wind blew sand around them like a quiet storm. It felt like the end, but then something changed. A soft sound, almost like a whisper in the dust. Crunch, crunch. Footsteps. Yelna turned her head sharply. Her eyes locked on a figure walking toward them from the horizon. It was tall, wearing dark clothes, face half covered by a cloth scarf. He walked slowly, not afraid, not in a rush. In his hand, he held something metal, a long tool or weapon. Yelna reached for a rock, ready to fight. But the figure raised one hand, palm open. "I'm not here to hurt you," the voice said. It was deep. And human? Yelna froze. A human. She had heard stories. Long ago, humans were strong, wild, emotional, but they were all gone from this part of the galaxy. Weren't they? The man knelt beside Mari. He glanced at the trap, then looked at Yelna. "She's losing blood," he said calmly. "I can open this trap, but you'll need to trust me." Yelna didn't answer, her hands still tight on the rock, but she didn't attack. The man pulled a small tool from his belt, an old earth tech cutter. He pressed it to the trap and began to work. Sparks flew. The trap hissed and popped. Mari winced, but didn't cry out. "What's your name?" the man asked without looking up. "Yelna," she said finally. He nodded. "I'm Jackson." Within minutes, the trap clicked open. Mari gasped as her legs were freed, but they were badly bruised and one was still bleeding. Jackson quickly opened a pouch and sprayed a silver mist on the wounds. "Painkiller and sealant," he explained. Yelna watched carefully, unsure whether to be grateful or afraid. "You need shelter," Jackson said. lifting Mari gently into his arms. "There's an old crash site not far from here." Yelena hesitated. "Why are you helping us?" Jackson looked at her over his shoulder. "Because no one helped me when I was in chains." And with that, he started walking. Yelena followed close behind. Behind them, the trap lay broken, silent once more, but somewhere in the sky. A signal had been sent, and others were already on their way. The sun was lower now, but the heat still clung to the land like a heavy blanket. Jackson moved with purpose, carrying Mari in his arms as if she weighed nothing. Yelena followed close. Behind, limping slightly but refusing to slow down, her eyes stayed locked on the human. Studying him, every movement he made was careful, quiet, controlled. Who was this man? And why did he walk these dead lands alone? The ground was rough metal debris, shattered bones of old machines, and rusted wires scattered everywhere. But Jackson stepped through it like he had done this 1,000 times before. He didn't ask questions, didn't speak unless needed. Only once did he look over his shoulder and say, "Keep up, we don't have long before they track the beacon." Yelena didn't reply. She was still trying to understand what just happened. This human Jackson had saved Mari without hesitation. No demand for payment, no questions about who they were, just action, just help, soon. A dark shape appeared in the distance, a wrecked shuttle, half buried in rock and sand. Its metal skin was covered in dust, and parts of it looked melted. Jackson pushed open a side panel and stepped. Inside, it was cool and quiet, a hollow shell. But safer than the wasteland, he laid Mari on a soft pile of old cloth and gear, then reached into a hidden case and pulled out more supplies. Bandages, water, small tools. Yelena finally stepped inside, her hand still holding a sharp rock, just in case. Jackson glanced at her and raised one eyebrow. "You planning to stab me after I save your sister?" Yelena didn't drop the rock, but she didn't move forward either. "I don't trust easily," she said. Jackson shrugged. "Good, you shouldn't." He worked fast, cleaning Mari's wounds, sealing them with a silver paste, and wrapping her leg with firm, even hands. Mari groaned once, then drifted into sleep, her body finally relaxing. Yelena sat in the corner, silent, watching everything. Jackson finished his work, poured water into a cup, and offered it to her. She hesitated, then took it. The water was clean, real. She could barely believe it after a long pause. Jackson leaned back against the metal wall and looked at her. "You want to ask," he said, "why I helped you?" Yelena narrowed her eyes. Yes, he didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small photo. Faded, it showed a human woman and a little boy. "My sister," he said quietly. "We were taken by raiders when I was a child." Yelena's eyes softened slightly. Jackson continued, "No one came for us. No one cared. I escaped." She didn't. His voice didn't shake, but the pain was there, hiding beneath the surface. Yelena looked at the photo, then at him. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Jackson nodded once. "That's why I help." Silence filled the space for a while. Then the ship trembled slightly. Jackson's eyes darted up. Scanners picked something up. He said, walking over to an old monitor built into the wall. The screen blinked, showing dots approaching fast, hoverbikes, 3 of them. "They tracked the beacon signal," he said. Yelena stood quickly, fear in her chest. "We have to run." Jackson shook his head. "We won't make it. Not with your sister like this." He opened a locker and pulled out a dusty but powerful-looking plasma rifle. "Stay low, stay quiet," he told her. "I'll handle them." "You're alone," Yelena said. "You can't take them all." Jackson smiled, a small grin that didn't reach his eyes. "I'm not trying to fight fair." He slipped out the side hatch and disappeared into the shadows outside. Yelena crouched beside Mari, holding her sister's hand. I won't let them take you, she whispered. Not again. Minutes passed like hours. Then gunfire, bright flashes outside. Yelena flinched as explosions echoed through the rocks. Screams followed, then silence. She didn't know if Jackson had survived, or if death was coming for them next. The hatch opened. Jackson stepped in, limping slightly. His clothes burned in places, but he was alive. In his hand, he held a broken device from one of the bounty hunters. They won't call for backup, he said simply. Yelena stared at him, unsure whether to feel relief or fear. You killed them all. Jackson shrugged. They made a mistake following that signal. He walked over to Mari, checked her bandages again, then sat down, breathing hard. Yelena moved closer, her voice low. You fight like a machine. Jackson looked at her, his eyes calm. No, he said. I fight like someone with nothing to lose. And in that broken ship, in the middle of a dead world, a strange silence settled. 3 lives now connected, 2 alien sisters once left to die, and a lone human, with hands of steel, and a heart still beating beneath the scars. The night fell like a black curtain across the wasteland. The stars above were cold and sharp, watching silently from high above inside the broken ship. Mari slept peacefully for the first time in days. Her breathing was calm, her wounds sealed. Her pain now softened. Yelena sat beside her, brushing away strands of hair from her sister's face. The soft light of a cracked power cell glowed on their skin. But her eyes kept moving to the hatch. She couldn't relax, not yet. Not with what she had seen earlier that day. Jackson sat near the entrance, polishing his plasma rifle with focused hands. The battle had tired him, but he didn't show it, not in his voice, not in his movements. He was a soldier, through and through. Thank you, Yelena said quietly. Jackson didn't look up. You're welcome. She hesitated, then asked, why were you out there? Alone. Jackson paused, then replied, looking for something worth saving. His words hung in the air, heavy and honest. Yelena didn't ask anything else after that, but outside, something else was moving, far beyond the rocks and wrecks. A sleek ship hovered quietly in the sky. It didn't roar like a normal engine. It hummed like a whisper, silent, deadly. Inside that ship, a bounty hunter named Garen watched a screen. Filled with blinking lights, the beacon had gone silent, but it had sent one last location burst, and he had come to collect. Garen was not like the other hunters. He didn't take slaves for fun. He took them for money and, more importantly, for control. Human signature detected, the AI on the ship said. Garen's eyes narrowed. Interesting, he muttered. Let's pay the human a visit, back in the broken ship. Jackson's fingers twitched. Something didn't feel right. He stood up and checked the motion sensors he had set around the camp. One of them had stopped working. Yelena noticed the change in him. What is it? She asked. Someone's coming, Jackson said softly. A professional. He turned to Yelena and handed her a small metal ball. What's this? She asked, confused. Smoke grenade, he replied. Only use it if you have no choice. She gripped it tight, her heart pounding. Jackson moved outside silently, disappearing into the shadows once again. Moments later, a red light passed across the wreckage. A scanner beam, sweeping side to side like a giant eye. Yelena ducked, pulling Mari closer. Her sister stirred, eyes half open, whispering, Are they back? Yelena kissed her forehead. Stay quiet, little one. Then a voice echoed through the rocks. Human. You have something that belongs to me. It was deep, cruel, and mocking. Jackson didn't answer. He had already climbed to the top of the wreck, rifle aimed, breathing slow. Garen stepped forward in sleek black armor. 3 drones hovered around him, scanning every direction. I know you're watching, Garen said. You killed my men. Brave, but you're not walking out of this one. Jackson pulled the trigger. A silent shot zipped through the air crack. One drone exploded in sparks. Then he moved, drolling off the roof just before another drone fired. Garen raised his arm and fired a plasma bolt. It hit the wall inches from where Yelna hid. She screamed, holding her sister close. Jackson returned fire, moving like a shadow between metal. It was chaos flashes, smoke, and flying heat. But Garen wasn't a normal hunter. He was fast, too fast. Too fast. He caught Jackson with a punch across the chest, sending him crashing into the sand, then raised his weapon to fire a killing shot. Yelna's hand shook, holding the smoke grenade. She looked at Maristelle, too weak to move, then at the human who had saved them both. Without thinking, she stood, pulled the pin, and threw the grenade hard. A pop, then thick smoke filled the air. Garen coughed, blinded. Jackson sprang to his feet, grabbed his blade, and drove it straight into Garen's shoulder. The hunter howled, his weapon falling to the ground. Jackson punched again and again, until Garen lay unconscious, breathing heavily. He looked over at Yelna. She was shaking, but still standing. "You all right?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "I think so." They dragged Garen's body into the wreck, tying him with cables. Jackson checked Mari's pulse, still steady, still alive. Then he slumped down beside her. His shoulder was bleeding now, but he smiled. "You threw that smoke grenade like a pro." Yelna let out a shaky laugh. "I was aiming for his face." The danger was not over. There were others, like Garen hunters, trackers, slavers. But tonight, they had survived again, together. And for the first time, Yelna looked at the human not with fear, but with something new. Hope Jackson sat in the corner of the broken ship, leaning against a wall. His left arm was bandaged now. The bleeding had stopped. The wound hurt, but pain was nothing new to him. He had survived worse. He had seen worse. Yelna sat across from him, her eyes never leaving her sister Mari. The younger alien girl was finally sleeping. Her face calm and safe, but dark bruises still covered her legs, and her breathing remained shallow. Yelna brushed Mari's silver hair gently, her fingers trembling slightly. Outside, the wasteland was quiet again. No drones, no ships, no voices. Only wind and silence. Jackson broke the stillness. "She's strong," he said quietly. Yelna nodded, her voice soft. She always was. "She kept us going after we escaped." Jackson looked at her carefully. The firelight flickered across her face. "I never asked your name," he said. Yelna blinked. Surprised, "No," she whispered. "You didn't?" She hesitated. Then said, "My name is Yelna." Jackson nodded. "Yelna. It suits you." There was a pause, not awkward but heavy, as if both of them had too much to say, and no strength to say it. Yelna leaned back, staring at the ceiling of the ship. "I haven't said my name out loud in a long time," she admitted. "Back in the slave camps, we weren't allowed to have names. They called us units. I was Unit 48. Jackson's jaw tightened. He hated hearing stories like this, but he let her speak. He didn't interrupt, he just listened. "They took everything from us," Yelna continued. "Our home, our freedom, our parents. Mari and I were taken when we were children. Different worlds, different cages." Her voice cracked, but she didn't cry. "Not anymore. There was a slaver named Theric," she said. "He used to say, 'Names are for the free, not the owned.' But Mari would always whisper my name when she thought no one could hear. She never forgot it." Jackson looked over at Mari, still resting. He saw more than wounds. He saw scars that didn't heal with bandages. Scars on the soul. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. Yelna looked at him, her voice firmer now. "Don't be. You didn't cause it. You stopped it." Jackson lowered his gaze. "I tried to stop it before," he said, "but I was just a boy when they took my sister. I couldn't protect her." Yelna tilted her head. You had a sister? Jackson nodded. Her name was June. She was younger than me, bright smile, soft voice. But one day, the raiders came. They took her, and I never saw her again. Silence filled the ship once more. But this time, it was a shared silence, the kind that connects to people with pain and truth. Yelna finally said, "Maybe that's why you helped us, because you couldn't save her." Jackson looked at the cracked floor. "Maybe," he whispered, "or maybe I'm just tired of watching people suffer." A faint groan pulled their attention. Mari was waking up. Her eyes fluttered open, and she blinked at the light. "Sis," she whispered. Yelna rushed to her, holding her gently. "I'm here," she said, smiling. "You're safe now." Mari looked around slowly, her gaze landing on Jackson. Her expression changed. She remembered him. You helped us." Jackson nodded. "That's right." She smiled weakly. "Are you a soldier?" Jackson thought for a moment, then said, "I was. Now? I just try to do the right thing." Mari looked at him closely. "You're the first human I've ever seen. You're not what I expected." Jackson chuckled softly. "Good or bad?" Mari grinned faintly. "Better." That small smile lit up the room more than the power cell. Yelna leaned down and kissed her sister's forehead again. "Rest, Mari," she whispered. "You're safe here." Later that night, while Mari slept again, Yelna helped Jackson check the perimeter. They stepped outside into the cold night air. The stars above were endless and quiet. Jackson handed her a scanner. "You ever used one of these?" Yelna shook her head. He smiled. "It's easy." And he showed her how. They moved around the ship, planting small sensor sticks and trip alarms, working together, step by step. They didn't talk much, but they didn't need to. When they finished, they sat on a rock and watched the sky. Yelna pulled her cloak tighter. Jackson handed her a heat stick. She took it with a nod. "Thanks." After a moment, she said, "I don't know what happens next." Jackson looked at her. "Neither. Do one, but I won't leave you two behind." Yelna's eyes met his, and for the first time in years, she believed someone meant it. The morning sun rose slowly over the wasteland. Its light touched the rusted metal, the silent rocks, and the half-buried ship where the sisters rested. Inside, Mari was sitting up now, sipping warm broth Jackson had made from old supplies. She looked stronger, though still pale. Yelna stayed close, helping her eat. Speaking softly to keep her calm, Jackson stood by the main hatch, checking his rifle. He had been awake all night, watching, waiting. Something didn't feel right. He turned toward the sisters. "We need to move soon," he said. "There might be more bounty hunters on the way." Yelna looked at Mari, who shook her head. "I don't think I can walk yet," Mari whispered. Jackson frowned. "I can carry her," he said, "but it'll slow us down." He opened a hidden panel and pulled out a folded hover sled, found this last year in an old military crate. He explained, "It's not fast, but it floats over the rocks." They loaded Mari gently onto the sled and packed what little supplies they had. Jackson looked up at the sky. "There's an old mining tunnel 5 miles north," he said. "If we can reach it, we'll be safe for a while." But as they stepped outside, they heard it, a low rumble, deep and cold, like thunder buried underground. Jackson froze. "That's not wind," he said. He climbed up the side of the wrecked ship and scanned the horizon. His heart sank. 4 armored speeders were approaching fast. Each carried at least 2 bounty hunters. He could see their armor gleaming in the sunlight. And worse, he saw a net cannon mounted on one of them. They weren't here to ask questions. They were here to take. Jackson slid down quickly. "We don't have time," he said. "They've found us." Yelna grabbed a small blaster. Her hands shaking, she looked at Mari, who squeezed her hand. "Don't let them take me again." Mari whispered, "Please." Jackson's eyes locked. With Yelna's, you have two choices, he said. Run with the sled and I cover you. Or stay and fight with me. Yelna didn't even blink. I'm not running, she said. Jackson gave a small smile. Didn't think you would. They dragged Mari and the sled back inside and blocked the hatch. Then they set trap strip wires, flash mines, and smoke bombs. Everything Jackson had stored for years now had a purpose. As the engines of the bounty hunters grew louder, Jackson loaded his rifle, stay behind cover. He told Yelna, wait. For my signal, the ground shook as the speeders stopped outside. Voices shouted, boots slammed on metal. Come out, human. One voice barked, we know you're in there. Jackson opened a small viewing slit and counted the enemies. 8 hunters, armored, armed, ready for a fight. Then came the voice that chilled Yelna's blood. It was deep, harsh, and familiar. Well, well, it said. I knew she'd run to someone stupid enough to protect her. Yelna gasped. Theric, she whispered. The slaver who once owned her. Jackson's grip tightened on his weapon. He looked at her. Is that him? Yelna nodded slowly. Jackson growled low. Then, let's make him regret ever touching you. A blast shook the side of the ship. Smoke filled the vents. They're trying to flush us out. Jackson shouted. He kicked open a side hatch and rolled out, firing as he moved. His shots hit one bounty hunter in the leg, another in the chest. Chaos exploded. Yelna took cover behind a crate, returning fire with shaky hands, but she hit one right. In the shoulder, the hunter screamed and fell back. Theric charged forward. Holding a massive shock whip, he saw Yelna and sneered. You always were trouble, he growled. I should have broken you the day you arrived. Yelna stood her ground. No, she said, her voice steady now. You never owned me, and you never will, as Theric lunged. Jackson tackled him from the side. They rolled through the sand, punching, kicking, swinging fists and elbows. Jackson's knife flashed. Theric screamed as it sliced his arm. But Theric was strong. He slammed Jackson into the ground. The whip cracked. Electric sparks flew. Yelna ran forward, grabbing the whip cable. She yanked it hard. Throwing Theric off balance, Jackson used that moment to land one final punch straight to Theric's jaw. The slaver collapsed, unconscious. The other bounty hunters saw their leader fall, panicked. They dropped their weapons and ran to their speeders. Jackson stood slowly, breathing hard, covered in dust and bruises. Yelna rushed to him. Are you okay? She asked. He nodded. Yeah, I've been waiting years to do that. They pulled Theric's body inside and tied him up. Mari reached out and touched her sister's hand. You didn't run, she whispered. Yelna smiled through tears. Not this time. That night, as the stars returned above, the slaver lay in chains. And the 2 alien sisters sat beside the human who chose to fight for them. They were no longer slaves. They were survivors, free and fierce, and no chains would ever hold them again. The sky was still and wide the next morning. The wind carried the scent of metal, dust, and something else. Peace. For the first time in many days, no footsteps chased them, no drones hovered above, and no voices barked orders. Inside the rusted ship, the air was calm. Mari lay on a soft mat, her breathing even, her eyes half open. She smiled weakly as Yelna wiped her face with a cool cloth. Jackson stood by a window, arms crossed, his eyes scanned the horizon. Quiet now, but always watched. He hadn't slept much, but he didn't need rest. He needed answers. Theric, the slaver, was tied in the corner, still unconscious. His armor was removed, his hands bound behind him. Jackson had stripped him of all Techum's weapons, trackers. Nothing could alert the outside world anymore. Yelna walked over, looking at the slaver's bruised face. Her voice was cold. I used to fear him, she said. Now, he just looks small. Jackson nodded. Fear makes monsters look bigger. he said. "But they're just men." They stepped outside to get some air. The land was still broken, but the silence was healing. It felt like a new beginning. They had survived the worst, but now came the harder part, deciding what came next. "I know a place," Jackson said suddenly. Yelena looked at him, curious. "A place?" He nodded. "An old bunker deep underground. Used to be a military outpost before the wars. It's abandoned, now hidden and secure." Yelena narrowed her eyes. "Why didn't you go there before?" Jackson smiled faintly. "I didn't have a reason, but now." He looked back at the ship. "I do." Later that day, with the heat easing and the sun behind clouds, they loaded what they could on the hover sled. Mari was stronger now, sitting upright, she insisted on holding her own blaster even if her hands still trembled. "I won't be useless anymore," she said with quiet pride. Jackson nodded with respect. "You're not," he replied. "Not even close." They tied Theric to the back of the sled, unconscious but breathing. "Are you sure we should take him?" Yelena asked. Jackson's voice was firm. "He has information trade routes. Names, codes. He may be garbage, but he's useful." The journey began slowly. The land was rough, but the sled glided over it smoothly. The sisters walked beside it. Jackson led the way. They moved like a small tribe, silent, cautious, united. It took them most of the day to reach a hidden ridge. Beneath it, camouflaged by rocks and overgrown vines, was a metal door. Jackson cleared the dust and placed his palm on a scanner. A soft beep, then a hiss. The door slid open slowly, revealing a dark stairway below. They stepped inside, one by one. The walls were lined with old lights, flickering on as they passed. They entered a wide room filled with crates, old furniture, and dusty tech. It wasn't perfect, but it was safe. "This is home now," Jackson said softly. Yelena walked around slowly, her eyes wide. "Real walls." She whispered, "No cages, no alarms, no chains." Mari sat on a chair and smiled. "I like this place." For the next few days, they cleaned, fixed, organized. Jackson showed them how to power the lights, check for air leaks, cook food. Yelena learned fast how to scan the area, how to reload weapons. Mari spent time reading old Earth books stored in the bunker. She laughed at the pictures of animals she had never seen: cats, dogs, elephants. Her laughter echoed through the room like music. They turned one section into a sleeping area, another into a small medical station. They added decorations, paintings, cloth, old memory chips with music. It was strange how a place so dead could feel so alive again. But peace didn't last forever. One night, as Jackson worked on fixing a signal scrambler, he caught something. A weak signal on an old COM channel. It was encrypted, but he knew the pattern. It was from Theric's network. Someone was still looking for the sisters, and worse. They were nearby. He called Yelena and showed her the screen. "This isn't over," he said. "They think he's dead, but once they learn he's missing, they'll come." Yelena clenched her fists. "So we fight again?" Jackson shook his head. "No," he said. "This time, we prepare." That night, Yelena stood outside the bunker with Mari. They looked at the stars above, cold and endless. "Do you think we'll ever be free?" Mari asked. Yelena pulled her sister close. "We are free," she said, "for the first time in our lives. We're not running, we're building," and behind them, deep in the bunker, a human soldier stood watch, silent, steady, ready. A man who had once lost everything, now protecting everything he never expected to find again. A place, a purpose, and maybe even a family. The wind howled across the rocks above the bunker. Dust swirled in the air, but inside the shelter, it was warm. Lights glowed softly. The air filters hummed, and the faint sound of music played from an old Earth radio. For the first time in their lives, Yelena and Mari had something they had only dreamed of. A place where no one shouted at them, chained them, or treated them like objects. But peace was a fragile thing, and it never stayed long. Jackson stood near a map displayed on a table. He tapped blinking red dots that moved slowly across a screen. The slaver network found his signal. He said, voice calm but serious, "They're sending a strike team." Yelena stood beside him, her eyes sharp, her jaw tight. "How many?" "7 ships," Jackson said, "well armed. Fast, experienced." He looked at her. "They're coming to kill everyone and take you back, Mari." Two had been listening from the nearby bed. Sat up straight. "I'm not going back," she said firmly, "even if it kills me." Jackson gave her a small nod. "We're not letting them take anyone. Not this time." They had 3 days, maybe less. The three of them worked non-stop. Jackson taught the sisters how to set traps, build barriers, and operate defense drones. They turned the bunker into a fortress. Yelena learned fast. She had a mind for strategy. Mari operated the scanners, watching every movement in the sky, and Jackson. He was preparing for war. Theric, still tied and locked in a cell below, shouted insults and threats. Jackson ignored him, but Yelena didn't. She walked into the cell one evening, stood before the man who had once chained her like a pet. He sneered. "You think this human will protect you forever?" He spat. "They always leave." Yelena didn't reply. She leaned forward and whispered, "Maybe. But he stayed longer than you ever did, and that makes him more than you'll ever be." The final day arrived like a quiet warning. The scanners picked up heat signatures dropping fast from the sky. 7 ships like metal, wasps ready to sting. Yelena, Mari, and Jackson took their positions. The ground shook as the enemy landed. Dust clouds rose around the bunker. Boots hit the sand. Heavy and fast. Lasers buzzed. Voices barked orders. The attack began. Blaster fire lit up the tunnels. Drones flew from hidden ports and rained down fire. Smoke filled the air, and alarms screamed. Jackson moved like a shadow through the chaos. His rifle barked, dropping 2 invaders within seconds. He rolled behind crates, ducked energy bolts, and kept moving. Yelena fought beside him, calm and deadly. Every move she made was sharp, precise. She wasn't the weak girl they once trapped in chains. She was a warrior. Now, Mari stayed in the control room, guiding drone fire and setting off smoke bursts to coming from the north tunnel. She shouted through the comm. "I see them," Yelena answered. Blasting one down for nearly an hour, the battle raged, but they held their ground. One by one, the enemy fell, until only one was left. The team leader, taller, stronger, crueler. He smashed through the main door, his armor glowing red-hot. He raised a blaster at Mari, who stood frozen. Jackson came out of nowhere, taking 3 shots to the chest before tackling him. They hit the floor hard, rolling across the metal. The man raised a blade, aiming for Jackson's neckbang. Yelena fired one clean shot, straight through the enemy's helmet. He dropped like stone. Mari ran to Jackson. Blood covered his chest. His breathing was shallow. "Stay with me," she cried. Yelena knelt beside her. "Hold on. Just hold on." Jackson smiled weakly. "I'm not done yet." Then his eyes closed. Everything went quiet. Jackson woke up 3 days later. His wounds were patched. The pain was heavy, but he was alive. Yelena sat beside his bed, her hand holding his. Mari brought water and smiled. "You almost died," she said. Jackson grinned. "Almost doesn't count." The bunker was still standing. The attackers were gone, and the slaver network shut down from inside using codes taken from Theric. The sisters were free, truly free. Weeks passed. They built gardens in the tunnels, filled the walls with lights and colors. They told stories, shared memories, laughed and cried together. They weren't broken pieces anymore. They were whole. One night, under the stars outside the bunker, Mari sat beside Jackson. "You didn't have to stay," she said softly. Jackson looked at her, then at Yelena, walking toward them with blankets in hand. I know, he replied, but I wanted to, Yelena. Sat down, wrapping the blanket around all three of them. She looked at him and whispered, You gave us more than safety. You gave us a life. Jackson smiled and leaned back. No, he said, we gave that to each other. And beneath the stars, in a land once ruled by chains and fear, two alien sisters and one human found something no bounty could buy. No slaver could steal, no war could destroy. They found a new beginning. Together, the end.